right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at Hamlet Act 3, Scene 4. This is the final scene in Act 3 of Hamlet, so I'm going to ask you please at the conclusion of today's video, make sure that you finish your study guides for Act 3, and instead of sharing them with me on Google Drive, please make sure you submit your finished study guide to Canvas. All right, I'll have an open portal for you there. Please, when it's finished, make sure you submit it. This way you can get a grade and any feedback that I need to give you, and you'll have all of that in one place there, so we don't have to worry about sharing documents or anything else like that. Just submit it to Canvas for me, okay? That will be best. Let's take a look at Act 3, Scene 4. Please open up your play, have that available to you. Remember what happens at the end of Act 3, Scene 3. Hamlet has this perfect opportunity to get his revenge on Claudius, but he overthinks it, and he realizes that if he takes his revenge while Claudius is praying, he will send Claudius a soul to heaven. And would that really be revenge for the death of his father? To give him eternal bliss in heaven is not justice for murdering the king and stealing all of these things away from him. So Hamlet stops himself. He decides not to go ahead with that vengeance at the moment, not to kill Claudius at prayer. And the dramatic irony, of course, we see that Claudius wasn't really praying, right? My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go, right? Empty words, empty prayers don't mean anything, right? There's no salvation if you don't mean it. So let's move forward now. We know that Polonius and Gertrude have a plan. They're going to spy on Gertrude talking with Hamlet. According to Gertrude and Claudius, Hamlet has behaved very, very badly in this play within a play. He's been way too crazy, and he's bordering on dangerous now, and Claudius is very nervous because he knows that Hamlet poses a threat to him. So Polonius, developing the theme of deceit and spying, decides to hide behind a tapestry. He's going to listen behind the arras, A-R-R-A-S, and kind of keep an eye on what Gertrude says to Hamlet, what Hamlet says to Gertrude, because, let's come back to the reason why, he and Claudius don't seem to think that Gertrude, as mother, can be trusted to be strict enough with her son, that she can't really control him because she's a woman. She's not going to be strong enough to deal with him the way she needs to, or at least that's their perspective. So by spying on the two of them, they're asserting their power in a way over this mother-son relationship. They're trying to insert themselves into this relationship, and we'll see how that turns out. So Polonius and the queen enter line 1 here, Act 3, Scene 4. He will come straight, look you, lay home to him, right? Polonius is telling Gertrude, be strict with him, basically. Make sure that you yell at him, okay? Tell him his pranks have been too broad to bear with, and that your grace hath screamed and stood between much heat and him. That she's had to take a lot of the punishment, or a lot of the bad effects of what Hamlet has been doing. Basically make Hamlet feel guilty, make him feel bad for everything that he's done. I'll silence me even here, Polonius says. Pray you, be round with him. So be strict with him. Polonius is telling Gertrude how to discipline her own son, how to control her own son. Let's just think about that as far as the assumption of the power of women here, and the interaction between the males and the females in this particular scene. Hamlet from within, meaning off stage. Why, mother, 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 he's coming. And the queen, I'll warrant you, fear me not. Withdraw, I hear him coming. Go hide, I hear him coming. Polonius hides, Hamlet enters. Now, mother, Hamlet says, what's the matter? Basically, what do you want? Remember that Gertrude has summoned him to come and speak with her, so he's saying, what's the matter? What do you want from me? And the queen kind of lays into him, Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. You've offended the memory of your father, is what she means. But look at the language that she uses and that Hamlet uses in retort, right? Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. You've offended your father. And Hamlet turns around and replies quickly, Mother, you have my father much offended. Look at the sass. The queen, come, you answer with an idle tongue. You're saying nothing useful, right? An idle tongue is like a foolish tongue. And Hamlet says, go, go. Look at the inversion, right? The switch. Go, go. You question with a wicked tongue. Why? How now, Hamlet? Right? What are you saying? Is what Gertrude's saying. And Hamlet, what's the matter now? Have you forgot me? Right? How dare you be so disrespectful to your mother and to the Queen of Denmark? Have you forgot me? Do you know who you're talking to? And Hamlet says, no, by the rood, not so. I know exactly who I'm talking to. You are the Queen, your husband's brother's wife. Yikes. And would it were not so, you are my mother. When he says, would it were not so, remember what we talked about in class. Would it were means I wish it were. So he says, and I wish it were not so, you are my mother. Uh-oh. Sorry, coffee break. The queen, nay, then, no, then, I'll set those to you that can speak. I'll make you talk to people who will be able to get through to you, right? Hamlet, come and sit you down. In most productions of this, he gets a little aggressive with Gertrude at this point. He basically grabs her and forces her to sit down. And usually, like on the bed, so this scene gets a little weird. You shall not budge. Right? He'll sit her down in front of a mirror or a vanity or something, or he'll hold up a mirror to her at this moment. You go not till I set you up a glass where you may see the inmost part of you. So you don't get to leave until I set up a mirror for you so that you can see your soul. Look at this. And the queen, what? What wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me, because he's getting so violent with her. She's scared and she calls for help. Oh, help. And Polonius behind the arras, remember, he can't see what's happening. He can only hear. So he's listening, and he shouts out from behind the tapestry, what, oh, help, right? And Hamlet, drawing, means he pulls out his sword. How now, he says, a rat, dead for a ducat, dead. He thrusts his rapier through the arras, and behind the arras we hear Polonius, oh, I am slain. This is such a dramatic moment in Shakespeare, of course, like, oh, you killed me. But of course the audience has to hear that so they know what's going on, right? It's a little overdramatic, but the audience can then pay attention and follow along. Remember what we talked about with the Greek theater too, right? So he falls and dies. Okay. So now Hamlet has murdered Polonius. And we see some potential conflicts arise. Yes? Let's watch. Okay. The queen, of course, in a panic. Oh, me, what hast thou done? Right? She's terrified. And Hamlet's response, look at this. Nay, I know not. Is it the king? Who did he think he was killing? Right? He heard a voice in his mother's bedroom behind the tapestry and assumed he was killing Claudius, even though he just saw him at prayer. Okay, so he gets excited. He thinks he killed the king. And the queen, of course, wringing her hands. Oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this. We finally see Hamlet make a rash action, take quick action without thinking, right? Without overthinking, he finally does something. He takes action, and it's the wrong thing. Through the entire play, we've been watching him hesitate, 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 hesitate. When he finally takes action and behaves rashly, he kills the wrong person. Now, the queen, oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this? And Hamlet replies, a bloody deed almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry with his brother. And the queen, as kill a king, she's shocked by this. Aye, lady, it was my word. That's what I said. He parts the arras, the tapestry, and he discovers Polonius's body, right? And look at what he says to Polonius's body. Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better. I thought you were the king. Take thy fortune. This is your future then. Thou findest to be too busy is some danger. Being a busybody, sticking your nose in places where it doesn't belong, is some danger, right? When you are spying, when you are engaging in this kind of behavior, it's dangerous, and you've gotten what you deserved for it. Leave wringing of your hands. You saw that long dash, that M dash, right? He turns to Gertrude, who has been wringing her hands, and he says, leave wringing of your hands. Stop wringing your hands. Peace, sit you down, and let me wring your heart, right? Wring your heart. For so I shall, if it be made of penetrable stuff, if I can get to it, if it is something that will learn. If damned custom have not so brazed it so that it be proof and bulwark against sense, if your habit of being so callous and cold-hearted hasn't made your heart impenetrable. And the queen, in a shock, what have I done that thou darest wag thy tongue and noise so rude against me? What crime have I committed? What have I done that you're so mean to me right now? And Hamlet's response, such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love and sets a blister there, makes marriage vows as false as dicers' oaths. That's what you have done. You have done something that is so terrible, it changes everything innocent and good and virtuous and holy into something awful and ugly and terrible. Oh, such a deed as from the body of contraction plucks the very soul, and sweet religion makes a rhapsody of words. Heaven's face does glow o'er the solidity and compound mass with tristful visage, as against the doom is thought sick at the act. And the queen, still very confused, ay me, what act that roars so loud and thunders in the index? And Hamlet shows her two likenesses. He shows her two portraits now, two pictures. Think about which two pictures he's showing her. Look here upon this picture and on this. The counterfeit presentment of two brothers. Stop the video, jot down. Which pictures is she showing? Okay. See what a grace was seated on this brow. Hyperion's curls. Remember, he's used Hyperion before, right? Hyperion to a satyr. That was in Act 1. Comparing who? The king and Claudius, right? Okay. The front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars to threaten and command, a station like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill, a combination and a form indeed where every god did seem to set his seal to give the world assurance of a man. This was your husband. So on this picture of the king, right, Hamlet's father, he compares him in so many ways to the ancient gods, the ancient Roman gods, right, Greek gods. He's talking about how much like a god his father was to him, okay, and how he viewed him that way. Now we have the contrast, right? Look you now what follows. Here is your husband, Claudius. Look at the tone in the language that he uses here. Like a mildewed ear, lasting his wholesome brother. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain, his father, leave to feed and batten on this moor, this swamp? Ha! Have you eyes? You cannot call it love, for at your age the heyday in the blood is tame. It's humble and waits upon the judgment. You're so old that you're basically waiting to die, is what he says. And so, of course, you can't call it love or lust because you're too old for that. And what judgment would step from this to this? Sense, sure you have, else could you not have motion, but sure that sense is apoplexed, sickened. For madness would not err, nor sense to ecstasy was ne'er so enthralled, but it reserved some quantity of choice to serve in such difference. What devil was it that hath cozened you at Hoodman blind? What devil has tricked you into thinking that Claudius was good for you? Eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling sans all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mope. If you had any sense at all, sight, vision, hearing, smell even, you would not have done this. What's wrong with you? Hamlet asks his mother. Oh, shame, where is thy blush? Telling his mother, you have no shame at all. Rebellious hell, if thou canst mutine in a matron's bone, to flaming youth let virtue be as wax and melt in her own fire. Proclaim no shame when the compulsive ardor gives the charge, since frost itself as actively doth burn, and reason panders will. And we see Gertrude. Oh, Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turn'st mine eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their taint. So we see Gertrude starting to feel guilt over this, right? She's looking into her own soul. She's feeling some remorse. She's feeling some guilt. And Hamlet says, nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed, stewed in corruption, honeying and making love over the nasty sty. This is gross imagery, guys. This is really nasty. He is using very foul imagery to describe her bed with Claudius. It was disgusting, right? And the queen, of course, oh, speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter in my ears. How much imagery about the ears, guys? There's so much about the ears. No more, sweet Hamlet. And Hamlet turns it back on her. He's not going to stop. A murderer and a villain, a slave that is not 20th part the tithe, 20th part of 1/10 of your precedent lord, King Hamlet, a vice of kings, a cut purse, a thief of the empire and the rule, that from his shelf the precious diadem stole and put it in his pocket, the crown, the jewel of the kingdom. And the queen no more, and the ghost enters. We'll talk about the ghost next.